Schultzy and Will here breaking down everything about Oregon's 41-21 loss to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl and the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Yep, Ohio State moves on. They will face Texas in the Cotton Bowl. That is coming up on the afternoon of January 10th. That would be next Friday. So no Duckies in that Cotton Bowl. It's going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes after they absolutely rolled over an Oregon team, Will, that just didn't seem to have a heartbeat. I mean, Ohio State, they came in just basically balls to the walls, two massive touchdown plays, I think it was 3 plays each for each drive. It just seemed like Oregon had no fight. And then into the second quarter, Ohio State going for the jugular with another big pass. That was a 43-yard pass to Jeremiah Smith, his second touchdown. And at that point, another short drive, for Oregon before they finally were able to score. I guess as a Duck fan, I was just getting shocked. When they went down 24-0, Will, I was thinking like Vegas didn't expect this. I don't think maybe Ohio State even expected that they'd be up this much. Like, I certainly know Oregon didn't, and I understand that the game plan wasn't great. We've heard from Coach Lanning and a couple of other players just talking about how they didn't prepare well enough and there's no excuses. But, man, I don't know if it was that Oregon wasn't prepared enough or Ohio State was the better team. I guess, which one do you think you can lean more on here?
So here's the thing. You have to remember it's chess, right? When it comes to a game plan, it's a chess match. And sometimes it's, how do I think they're going to try and stop what I do well? And it gets even more difficult when you're playing a team that has already played you in a season.
Yeah.
Right? So remember, what worked last time for Oregon? When Ohio State first looked at how they were going to play Oregon this year, they left a lot of man coverage on the backside against Evan Stewart and against Trayshawn Holden. They double covered Tez, and they said, Tez isn't going to beat us.
Yeah.
Well, then guess what? Evan Stewart and Trayshawn Holden, until he got kicked out, they beat you. They found ways to get open and burn you one-on-one. And then once you start backing out of your defense, now Tez Johnson has room in the middle. Now Terrence Ferguson has room in the middle. So what's the difference that they did this time? They brought Caleb Downs into the middle of the field, and they let him just kind of play. He has some coverage responsibilities. He has some gap-filling responsibilities. But Caleb Downs is one of the most high IQ, naturally gifted players when it comes to the defensive secondary. What he was doing a lot of times is, at the snap of the ball, he was almost reading it like a linebacker, but then able to use his speed to get back into coverage like you would see a corner do that. And he's playing in the middle of the field in that safety spot. And that's a great game plan change by Ohio State that Oregon was not ready for.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they necessarily should have been ready for. Now, I think you can have some critiques on how come you weren't able to change up the game plan quicker, because I felt like there were a lot of trying to beat your head into the wall when it came to running the football.
Yeah.
Like, they have stacked the box, and you might not consider it a stacked box, but you need to because of how downhill that Downs is playing right now. The other thing was, it felt like they kept trying to attack the middle of the field. When Downs is sitting there in the middle of the field, you don't have the space. I liked what Ohio State was doing with their zone coverages. They just were there on every play. Even when Gabriel got out of the pocket, it felt like early in that game, Oregon didn't have an answer. And so you can have a critique about, hey, Oregon needed to come in with their counterpunch sooner or to have a better counterpunch offensively. But I also think that you have to tip your cap to Ohio State. They completely changed what they did in the first game, and they did it in a way that Oregon didn't see coming. That's very, very impressive.
Yeah, Oregon just really anemic, really looking pretty terrible until that last drive of the first half. It was, I heard something that Josh Pate said when he was on with Dirt and Sprague earlier this week. Late Kicks Josh Pate does a weekly appearance with the guys. I believe it's Thursdays at 7:30, but you can catch them 6 to 9 here on 1080 The Fan. He made a great point, Will, about, football in general, or like looking at the outcome of a game. People forget that it's not the same team that shows up every single time, right? And he gave the example of it being like a 52 card deck, and each card represents a different team that will show up. And there are vast differences in those 52 types of teams, so to speak. Essentially, statistically, how are you going to perform this week? It really is a lot of the times left up to, I would say, some bit of chance. And you can say a 25-day layoff affected this. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm not sure. I would be interested to see if the college football playoff model has changed.
It's going
as far as layoffs
it's
being
gonna
so
change.
long.
It's gonna change. The playoff format is gonna change flat out. It's gonna move to 14. I would prefer 16. I don't like having a bye. That's how I operate in I didn't like playing with a bye.
Okay.
When I played in college or when I played in high
wanted
school,
to keep it going.
I want to just keep going. However, here's my issue with blaming the bye. You knew what the deal was. You knew what the format was. You cannot control how long the bye is or is not. It is then up to you, once you have gotten that bye, to use the bye to the fullest extent possible to prepare you for the game.
Yeah.
And I think that Coach Lanning, and we talked to him this week, or this month, right? We talked to him
2
in
weeks ago, I
December.
think. Yeah.
I think that's right. We talked to him about the game. And I actually appreciated the game plan that Coach Lanning was willing to share with us. They self-scouted. They went against themselves, right? They went ones-on-ones because they were trying to keep up that tempo, keep ready to play, making sure that they didn't have a rust debate, right? And yeah, it's possible. The offense, it looks slow. A little bit of that could have been, hey, they were rusty. But if you're going to solely blame, hey, there were 25 days off and that's why we lost, I'm going to have a problem with that because that takes away how well Ohio State played. Ohio State had a better game plan than you, and they executed at a higher level than you. And I don't think that game was lost because Oregon had 25 days off. And I think if you as a program, and they're not going to because Coach Lanning isn't this, and those players are not this either. But if you are a fan base and you're coming in and you're saying, well, we had the hardest path for a 1 seed and we had 25 days off, then you're a loser. You're a loser and you want to lose because that's a loser whine. You know what winners do? They look at a problem that's laid out in front of them and they come up with the best game plan to try and defeat that. And I think that Coach Lanning is a winner. And he came out and him and his staff, they created a game plan that they thought would win for them. And it didn't work. But you know what? The next time that Coach Lanning has a bye, because he's going to have a team good enough within the next couple of years where he might have a bye again.
Yeah.
He's going to have a better game plan on how to approach that so that they don't come out slow.
I hear you there, but unfortunately today it was like worst case scenario. And back to that whole 52 card deck analysis, just kind of feeling like it was like the Joker card. You know, maybe that came up against Idaho earlier this season, but no. Today's game was the worst case scenario for you as a Duck fan. You'd much rather like lose, you know, on a last second field goal or something like that, where you're on the other end of it, the way that Will Howard lost for Ohio State. Like, yeah, I'd be upset. But, like, at least they competed. I am so mad, and I'm getting more upset as I sit here thinking about it, that this was, like, the Joker card of the Oregon Ducks 52-card deck for this season. It was just a mess, and they looked anemic. They came out not ready to go. They didn't have a heartbeat. You can use all kinds of analogies. It was just bad in their 41-21 loss against the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl.